Short stories are tiny windows into other world, other minds, other dreams. They're journeys you can make to the far side of the universe and still make it in time for dinner. That's a quotation from Neil Gaiman, a truly acclaimed writer, graphic novelist, and the author of the famous movie adaptation, Coraline. Good day, learners. My name is Krystle Reyes, and in this lesson, we will be talking about the short story, particularly the flash fiction. What is a short story? Short stories are self-contained works of prose fiction whose function is to impart a moral, capture a moment, or evoke a certain mood. Short stories are often more focused, as all the elements within plot, character, pacing, story structure, and so on must work together towards this common goal. While there are a few types of short stories, the focus of this learning will be on flash fiction. Flash fiction is a very short story. It is known as sudden fiction, short stories, microfiction, or micro stories. It's very brief but interesting. So as much as possible, it has to contain very few characters. So, how do we make a flash fiction? Watch closely as we discuss the 6 key points in making a flash fiction. The first one is, you must use strong imagery. Make every single word count. Help your readers visualize as much as possible. Let us take a look at Charlotte's Web, for example. The way this book makes readers feel is why it has been a favorite among children and adults alike for so many decades. Let us read together. This is about the description of the barn. The barn was very large. It was very old. It smelled of hay and it smelled of manure. It smelled of the perspiration of tired horses and the wonderful sweet breath of patient cows. It often had a sort of peaceful smell, as though nothing bad could ever happen again in the world. It smelled of grain and of harness dressing and of axle grease and of rubber boots and of new rope. And whenever the cat was given a fish head to eat, the barn would smell of fish, but mostly it smelled of hay. For there was always hay in the great loft up overhead, and there was always hay being pitched down to the cows and the horses and the sheep. This excerpt highlights the author's masterful use of olfactory imagery, transporting readers to the inside of the barn by conveying the unique and ever-changing smells. The second key point is, stick to one moment. Focus on one particular moment in time. Don't try to cram in more than one scene into a piece of flash fiction. Remember, number of words are precious. One scene is enough. Third key point. Work with just 1 or 2 characters. Don't spread your story too thin. If you find yourself needing more than 2 characters or 2 scenes, your story may be better suited to the short story format. But for flash fiction, you might as well focus on just 1 character or 2. The fourth key point is, try first-person point of view. This will create an instant connection to the reader and allow you to express more in fewer words. If you're writing a short story, particularly flash fiction, stick with one narrator and point of view. With a short word count, it will confuse readers if you jump between too many. Fifth key point, surprise your reader. Make sure to end your story on a different emotional note than the one you started on. Creating surprise is what flash fiction is all about. Take the reader on a journey, no matter how short. Here are some ideas you can use for your surprise ending based on examples from books and movies. It could be that the protagonist's greatest enemy was actually his biological father all along. Or an archaeologist at a dig comes across his own skeleton. Character A discovers the real identity of character B through an old yearbook. A gift from character B to character A is actually a trap. Other flash fiction would also incorporate the dream. The character wakes up and figures out that it is all a dream. Or a character is thought to be a long-time dead character but is actually revealed as alive and stronger because he or she was disguised as an owl, for example. Or a much-hated character is revealed to have been the one sacrificing and making everyone happy all along. And the last key point is, make good use of your title. When you have a few words to work with, your title can pack a punch. Take Joyce Carol Oates' flash fiction story, Widow's First Year. The story simply reads, I kept myself alive, and that's it. Or Ernest Hemingway's famous 6-word story, For Sale, Baby Shoes, Never Worn. Only 6 words, but filled with a powerful story. What courage the father mustered to finally sell the baby shoes. What could have happened to the baby? See, with just a few words, there is a big story. And on to our last and final point for the flash fiction, the dialogue. The dialogue is what characters in fiction say. It is how characters express themselves verbally, usually in conversation with each other. So it might look like this. Use a comma before the close quotation mark, then write who said it. After that is the period. When using question mark or exclamation point, put it before the close quotation mark, then the period here. Alright, so let's have important points to remember when incorporating dialogue in our flash fiction. The first one is, the dialogue should reflect your character's background. The dialogue must reflect where they come from, their social class, upbringing, nationality, attitude. Of course, we will definitely know that a character is gay if the dialogue used is gay language. Another point to consider is that fictional characters don't say, alright? In real life, speech has lots of paddings or stuffing. Words like, yeah, or I was like, but good dialogue in fiction must be both more incisive and selective. So select the words that you will use. Focus only on the important parts. Lastly, be true to the period. If you are setting your story in the past, your dialogue should accurately reflect word choice, the idioms, and speech patterns of the period. So when your story is set in the 1980s, how your characters speak must also be aligned to the specific time. Conversations need to be specific to the time you're writing in without seeming contrived. So if your character is an old man from the olden times, a really old man who lived near the Inuday Falls of Bauco, the dialogue must reflect the time period he is in. Flash fiction is highly favored nowadays because of its ability to convey deep truths and universal emotions like fear, anger, anxiety, happiness, joy. All these resonate in the minds of the readers. Parents, kids, teachers, politicians, and students like you. Make things up in that brilliant mind of yours. Spice it up with imagination, more imagination, and then write them down. My name is Krystle Reyes. Enjoy writing. Here is a sample flash fiction taken from Hannah Lee Kidder's YouTube page entitled 3 Tips for Writing Flash Fiction. You may go ahead and watch it and subscribe. So the title is The One. So it goes like this. You may read along or you can read silently. The diner hummed with conversation. The waitress cleared her throat. "I'm sorry, did you say something?" I asked. Her deep brown eyes flashed from mine to the pile of shredded napkin on the table in front of me and back. She chuckled. "Sorry to interrupt. I thought you might want a refill." I lifted my mug, glancing at the entrance. "Hot date?" she asked, giving me the full force of her customer service smile. "Something like that," I said. "Well, good luck." She turned back to walk to the counter. "Let me know if you need anything else, okay?" Her dark ponytail bounced against her lower back. She really was very striking. Any other day I might have padded the conversation, tried to get to know her a bit, but I didn't have time or energy to focus on her at the moment. The little bell above the door jingled. I dug my fingernails into the booth seat on the either side of my legs and held my breath. A woman stepped across the threshold, and my chest tightened. She glanced around the room and stepped aside, holding the door ajar. As soon as I saw him, I relaxed my grip on the seat. He was more beautiful than I could have imagined. His sandy hair stuck up in front. A pair of rectangular wire frames magnified his wide hazel eyes. The woman said something to him, and a crooked grin broke across his face. The tension and anxiety melted from my bones. I stood, waving. The woman saw me and smiled, leaning over and pointing him in my direction. I clasped my hands in front of my chest as he rolled toward me. Anticipation, fear, and elation pushed at all my edges, threatening to burst. His chair came to a stop in front of me. "Hi, Oliver." I reached for his hand. "I'm your mommy." And it ended there. Let us check if this sample flash fiction made use of the 6 key points that we discussed earlier. Our first key point was to use strong imagery. This flash fiction described the diner well, so we can imagine how it looked like. We can imagine that most tables are filled, and we can hear people talking with each other while enjoying their meal. The author also described how the waiter looked like and how a customer service or waitress would be in front of customers. She also described how she felt, her chest tightening, her anxiety. Oliver was also described vividly, so yes, use of strong imagery, check. Next key point, stick to one moment. Okay, this flash fiction happened in only one setting, the diner. There were no other scenes in the story, so sticking to one moment, check. Third key point, work with just 1 or 2 characters, we said. So who are the characters? Main characters, the mother and Oliver. There is a waitress and the woman, but they don't really play a significant role in the story, but they are important in making the flash fiction work well. Now on to our fourth key point. Try the first person point of view. So check. The story used I, and the character, the mother, is the one telling the story. And fifth key point, surprise your reader. So, as we were reading the story, we thought maybe it was really a hot date, and maybe the character talking is a male because he seemed interested with a waitress, but voila, it turns out that the hot date was actually her son. Well, we don't know what happened, maybe a long-lost son or an adoption scenario. And we finally realized that the character telling the story is a female, not male. These are all elements of surprise. So, fifth key point, check. Finally, make good use of your title. The title is The One. Is it striking? Yes, it is. It may also give the readers a notion that it is a love story or a date, but actually not. So, check. All our 6 key points were done in this sample flash fiction. I hope this example helped you to understand the lesson more and that you already have an idea of what to write about. You may also read examples attached to your learning activity sheet. Dear learner, there is no fast rule to writing a story. In fact, there are no rules in writing a story. With the elements and techniques of writing discussed in the previous lesson in mind, you may go ahead and write or tell a story. But it is difficult to just simply sit down and write, isn't it? That's okay. Instead of scratching your head and facing that learning activity sheet all day and night long, try doing these tips. COVID and Delta and Beta have all given us a hard time. But wouldn't that be a source of fiction writing? Take inspiration from the situation around us. Your lockdowns, your struggles studying, the crisis this pandemic brings. I call that brain dump. Dump all the thoughts in your brain into writing. Make characters, put them in a difficult situation, have them fight. Then put an end, whatever ending you wish to have. I'm quite sure a lot will relate to whatever you will write. And if no one will, who cares? Also, go outside. Look at the window, take a walk. Grab your face mask and alcohol, not 2x2 Ginebra, and jog outside. Find inspiration in nature. Our province is filled with wonderful sights that you can explore to free your mind and be more inspired. But of course, abide by the protocols. Finally, make notes. Make as much notes as you can. Don't have a note? You probably have your phone right there. Write any memorable thing that you may see or encounter so that you won't forget. Then, when you sit down and face that learning activity sheet again, you can look at those precious notes and for sure, you'll get an idea somehow. If none works, consult your teacher.